Today, you are going to get a memorable front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of AJ Venter. AJ, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Thanks, Peter. Lucky to be on here.
It's great to have you here. AJ, before we get started, let's take a look at this week's trivia question. At the 2011 Rugby World Cup, the Springboks faced Fiji, Namibia, Samoa, and which other nation in their pool? Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below, and we'll also find out if AJ knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. AJ, I would like to begin our conversation in the late 90s. I remember you bursting onto the local scene in provincial rugby with the Free State Cheetahs in those days, and everybody was saying this man is going to be a Springbok very, very soon. And I'm talking about 1997, 1998 here. How frustrating was it for you that you had to wait until 2000 to actually make your test debut?
Yeah, so interesting. So in 1994, this is going to be interesting to see if you know this. In 1994, I think it's 1994, the Free State played the Lions in a Currie Cup final in the cricket oval in Bloemfontein. And that game, that whole season I played for the Free State B team, and they finished their season, I want to say 3 weeks before, and I went off to the farm to visit my family on the farm. And of course, when you're on the farm, you eat meat and you drink beer with the family, and you get fat and you don't train. And the Friday afternoon, I was getting ready. I was packing my little, braai stuff to go to the Currie Cup final the next day, and the phone rang. And we still had one of those phones, those old phones, two shorts and a long tring tring tring. And I remember my mom answered, and she came off the phone saying, "You play in the Currie Cup final tomorrow." And I was shocked. I mean, I was so unfit. I picked up a few kilograms. I haven't really played with it. I've not played one game for the Cheetahs. I've only played for the B side. So I don't know their moves, nothing. But one of the guys fell sick the day before when he was in hospital. Reino Opperman. I think it was Reino Opperman. Fell sick, and that was me. I literally jumped in the car that afternoon. And in fact, the next morning early, drove to Bloemfontein, never played a Currie Cup game in my life, don't know the moves, and I had to play a Currie Cup final. And I would, until this day, I remember how nervous I was, because in the other side was Uli Schmidt, Japie Mulder, all those guys who were already Springboks, and here am I, no one, don't know anything, and I was so scared. I remember being so scared. Anyway, ended up not going on. The Cheetahs, Free State got a beating, I want to say into the 30s or 40s in a final that game, but I end up not going on. And believe it or not, people always tell you that your first game you want to play. I didn't want to play that day because I just knew that I might die on that field or embarrass myself because I don't know the moves. So that was actually my very first Currie Cup game, but didn't go on.
That's quite incredible. And then, as I say, you did become a stalwart for the Cheetahs later on, sort of 1997. Obviously, the Cheetahs were in the final again against Western Province, I think 14-12. And then there was the Helgaard Miller forward pass incident. And certainly at that point, people were talking about you as having been almost a certainty for the Springbok side. And I know that there were a lot of talented loose forwards around at the time. Obviously, Corne Krige, Rassie Erasmus, André Venter, one of your colleagues at the Cheetahs. And then you only got to make your test debut in 2000. Was it a little bit of a frustration that you had to wait so long?
Yeah, so in 1997, I just came back from Italy. So I was fresh in the country. I spent 3 years in Italy playing rugby. And I came back, and I must tell you, my first year, 1997, stand out to me one of my best years and most enjoyable. And the reason is because I was already 25 or 26, but in my mind, I was a young man coming in. And they were, like you say, our loose forwards were myself, André Venter, and Rassie Erasmus. I mean, can you ask for a better trio to be in than those two legends? I mean, so for me, they've been playing for the Cheetahs. I come in from Italy, and I'm part of this incredible loose forward trio. And the whole cheetah team at the time was just incredible again. That, like you said, that year we went back into the Currie Cup final. We had an incredible year. Piet was our coach, and that you had to mention that forward pass, didn't you? So so we ended up getting into the final down in Cape Town against Western Province, and you missed Bobby Skinstad. So Bobby Skinstad, Corne Krieger, like the real legends of South African rugby. They were kind of the loose forwards of the day, and we ended up in the last 30 seconds playing down the line, and Algot passed the pass, and the pass drifted, some say forward, allegedly forward, others reckon maybe not forward, and Jan Harm scored the try, but we got called back for the forward pass, and yeah, there was, I mean, again, for me, it was a dream start. Again, starting my professional career in a team like that, going to the final. We didn't win, but going to the Currie Cup final for me was incredible. And yes, it was great because people were talking about, you know, me playing for the Springboks, and yes, it was a bit frustrating, but you know what, Peter, that's all part of life, man. In anything, in business, you know, I've got similar stories in business. You know, you learn, you make your way forward, and sometimes it's tough and sometimes it's hard, and sure, it was a little bit hard, but when I made it eventually, it made it so much better. You know, in 2000, in Wales, Cardiff, in the Millennium Stadium, and I'm a loose forward, and they put me on with probably 10 or 15 minutes to go, and just, you know, one of the other highlights of my life, eventually, I want to say I was 26 at the time, so that's quite late, right? So a lot of guys become Springboks quite early, and so for me, having to wait made it just so much better for me, for the experience.
And how do you actually remember that day that you made your test debut against Wales?
This is funny because the one thing I do remember is because obviously it's a bit blurry when you do these things for the first time. But I do remember this: the field was mud. They painted it. I remember there was a green paint over it just to make it look like there's grass. Obviously, I mean, that was summertime, well, wintertime, so summer has already passed, so they played soccer on the pitch. So I remember the field being a bit funny, but I also remember, I want to say there was 10 minutes that I was on, and I remember just running around like a crazy man, but not achieving much. I remember coming off the field thinking, I've just run so much, but I've done nothing. You know, that overexcitement. But of course, you know, from there on, you know, things have changed dramatically for me in rugby.
So that was at the end of 2000, and then there was a period where you were out of the picture again, but you were back in at the end of 2001 on the end of year tour, starting against France at the Stade de France, if I've got this right. You can confirm that for me. That was also the first time that you started for the Springboks in a test match, AJ. And I've had quite a few former Springboks on this show who have told me that they made their debut coming off the bench, but it was only when they started for the first time that they felt that they were truly Springboks. Would you go along with that?
You don't know. I disagree with that. For me personally, I remember that. I mean, like I've explained that vividly to you now. What I remembered in that Wales game. For me, that was the moment where I got my colours. And whether so you were talking about this French game now, and I actually don't. I do remember. I think we lost, but I don't actually remember much of the game. Like it was my first game. So that, for me, getting my cap in Wales, that was the moment.
Sounds good to me. Now, also at that time, Harry Viljoen was the Springbok coach. And again, I've had quite a few former Springboks on the show tell me all sorts of stories about the Harry Viljoen era. Usually, it's about the fancy suits and the smart shoes. What can you tell us about Harry Viljoen as a coach?
I'll tell you an interesting story. So there was quite a long tour, and there was an A and a B team. There was a midweek team and a test team. So whoever were playing on the bench on Saturday would directly go to the midweek team and play that game as well. Depending if you played too long on the weekend, you might only be on the bench on the midweek team. But I was on the bench the first game. And remember that, so Harry Viljoen was quite advanced in terms of coaching and coaching staff. So there was a lot of coaches. There was Harry Viljoen and Markgraaff, etc., etc. Markgraaff, obviously a very strong character, and if he wants something, he does it and he says it, and so there was a bit of interesting conflict there, at least in what concerns me, and I'll explain why. The day after the first test, Harry came to me and said to me, "Next week, I'm putting you on after halftime." The second test came, that midweek I played. The second weekend came, I was after halftime getting ready, game finished, no AJ on the field. Okay, no problem. Harry came to me after and said, "Next game, I'm putting you on halftime." Midweek come, play the game. Third test, halftime, I'm getting ready, I'm ready to play, I'm warming up. End of the game comes, AJ, again, I'm not put on. Again, he comes to me and says, "Listen, I promise you, this time we're going to put you on before halftime." And the same thing happened until the last test match in Twickenham. I want to say we played 5 test matches that tour. If I might be wrong, but I think we played 5. But anyway, the last test match, he came to me and said to me, "I'm definitely putting you on. Get ready. 20 minutes into the game, I'm putting you on." 20 minutes in the game, I was warming up. Halftime came, halftime gone. I'm warming up. 20 minutes into the second half, nothing. 4 minutes to go. 4 minutes to go to the end of the game. Someone said to me, "AJ on, number 19 on," and I'm running, I'm sprinting on. There's a line out on the other side. I get to the line out. We get the line out. We play 4 or 5 phases, and it breaks down close to the England try line. And the ref taps me on my shoulder, says to me, "You got to go off." I said, "No, but I just came on." He said, "No, you got to go off." And I look, and they've got, when Warren Brosnan was the other loose forward, and Warren Brosnan came running on, and they sent me off with 2 minutes to go. I only played a test match for 2 minutes, and they subbed me, and I was blown away. I don't know what was going on. I mean, I was late and I was full of rubbish, and I was angry. Anyway, only a few years later, someone told me what actually happened with Markgraaff and Harry having a bit of a thing. Harry put me on, and Markgraaff took me off. With 2 minutes on the game, he took me off. So that, if you ask me, what do I remember about that Springbok tour? That is what I remember about that Springbok tour.
That is an unbelievable story. So, okay, that's a little bit about Harry, who was then replaced by Rudolf Straeuli shortly thereafter at the beginning of 2002. What can you tell us about Rudolf as a coach?
Yeah, so a lot of people have got a lot of stories about Rudolf. I obviously was with Rudolf when he was coach of the Sharks as well. And I quickly realized Rudolf's style and you know how he does things and you know the hoorah and getting guys excited. You know, and I'm an Afrikaans guy, and I went to the army, so I understood Rudolf quickly, and I knew what he was doing, and I knew what I had to do in the team to succeed. I think Rudolf also kind of appreciated that bit of me, you know, doing what is going to be done. So, I mean, I was in and out of Rudolf's teams as well. Some started, some on the bench. Bob Skinstad and I were loose forwards a few times under him. You know, obviously, like I said, there's a lot that happened with Rudolf, with Kamstalra and all those things. I've unfortunately missed that. I missed all the World Cups through either non-selection or through injury. So it you know, I enjoyed him. A lot of people disagree with this, but for me, I enjoyed Rudolf.
Let's talk about the way that Straeuli actually started off, because we had a couple of test matches in June against Wales, Samoa, Argentina, some good results there as well. And then in the Tri-Nations, even though we were losing, the performances were actually pretty good. And it almost looked like, hang on a second, there might be something exciting brewing here. What was it like being part of that?
You know, yeah, you're asking us stuff that, I mean, like I said to you, it's my whole memory and remembrance of the time was exciting. It was fun. Although, like I said, you've always got to bear in mind the way that Rudolf wanted to coach and the way he managed people. And if you know. he understood that, I think it would be good. But yeah, there was a time where things were actually not looking too bad. Things were, there were a few victories in the pipeline. So yeah, I mean, I just got fond memories of that.
I'm thinking specifically of that Van Markgraaff last-minute try and conversion against the Wallabies to win at Ellis Park. But something that I'm confident you will remember as well, AJ, the week before that in Durban against the All Blacks, there was a supporter, Piet van Zyl, who ran onto the field and tackled the referee, and you got involved in that a little bit as well. Talk to us about that moment.
Man, I always say when people talk about my rugby career, I always say, you want to be remembered for scoring record tries or having record victories. But unfortunately, my name will always be synonymous with Piet van Zyl, which is a bit of a bummer. But okay, it's one of those things that happen. But yeah, so I was playing lock that test, and I just remembered we were down in the scrum, and I remembered seeing a guy with denim jeans, or there were denim jeans next to us, and my immediate thought was, oh my God, someone's on the field. And the minute I broke up, I just saw him, already he was going down with a tackle with the referee, and I forgot his name, the referee, and the minute, I mean, I've watched the videos obviously now a few years later. And I was quite impressed with my breakup in the scrum, because by the minute they fell on the floor, I was there as well. And Richie McCaw was quite quickly there as well. And we just tried to. I remember trying to pull him off. And as we were pulling off, he was kind of getting a bit angry. And I remember him saying to me, swearing to me, AJ, you. And that was and I just gave him a little bit of a warm up on the cheek, just one little one. And that was it. And the security guys came on and they took him off. But yeah, good memories, but not the ones that I really want to, have synonymous with my name.
And it was an unbelievable thing that happened. I mean, I remember watching it and what's going on here? How did this guy even get onto the field? It was unbelievable. But speaking of the memories, and we just spoke about how the Straeuli era actually got off to a good start and there were some encouraging performances. But then came the end of year tour in 2002. And it's as if things quickly spiraled out of control. Heavy defeats to France and England at 53-3. And then there was the defeat in the middle to Scotland as well. What do you think went wrong there?
Yeah, so look, obviously that particular game, the England game, when I met my wife, Danielle, and we got married 2 years ago, and when I met her 5 years ago, we were just chatting about rugby, and she said, yeah, you cannot believe it. I actually lived in London, and I went to that test match where we lost so far. I can't believe the Springboks were so bad then. And I was so embarrassed. I said, you can't believe it. I was playing that game. And and that game, of course, we were already struggling as a team. Things were falling apart a little bit. And then, of course, Janus Labuskaghni got the red card, I want to say 10 minutes into the game. And so, you're playing in a Springbok team that's not firing on all cylinders, and you're playing against an England team that is World Cup standard. I mean, Jason Robinson and all these guys, just they were drilling teams. So yeah, that was the writing on the wall. And again, one of the memories that I really don't want to remember. But I'm not sure exactly what was the downward spiral at the time. I think with Rudolf's coaching style, I think that's not sustainable. And I think especially when it comes to non-Afrikaans players. So I think it got to a time where the players kind of started rebelling a little bit against, I want to almost say, draconian coaching styles, what Rudolf was known for. And I think kind of that was the start of the demise.
And then, as you mentioned, you missed out on the 2003 Rugby World Cup. And the year after that, Jake White had come in. And I'm interested to hear from you how much different the atmosphere was in the Bok camp under Jake White. Because again, I've had some former Boks here who said that if you compare it to what it was like towards the end, certainly of the Straeuli era, it was chalk and cheese.
Yeah. So again, in any team, there are guys that are going to get along with the coach and vice versa, the coach getting along with the guys and not. I mean, Jake knows this. He does. I mean, I always say this. He didn't really like me. He kind of had to have me there for a few games because there weren't any other players. But he didn't really like me as a person, my character. And if with Jake, if you're not in his inner circle, even if you make the team, it's very difficult. He makes life very difficult in the way that he treats you, speaks to you. Jake has always got a circle, and there's an inner circle, and those guys are gold, and they've got free reign, which is perfect. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. I was just not in that circle. So for me, the memory with Jake wasn't that great. But Jake is, I mean, his statistics talks for itself. He's a great coach, and again, with the Bulls as well, he's doing so well. But there was a bit in 2004 when we played in the Tri Nations that for me actually was, I want to say, my highlight in the Springboks, apart from starting, is when we actually won the Tri Nations here in Durban. So for me that time, man, that was a highlight for me. I kind of still remember snippets of those games. The ones in Perth. I think it was Perth where we had to sneak a victory over there, and eventually coming back and winning the Tri Nations here in Durban, in my hometown. So for me, that was possibly the highlight of my Springbok career.
And then, as it turns out, after that end of year tour in 2004, you were again out of the picture. And I think you've touched on that and explained how and why that came to be. But you were back in 2006, and quite a time to make a comeback as well against the All Blacks in Rustenburg, the first and only time that we've played them at that venue. And André Pretorius with the last gasp penalty to win it for us. And we touched on it a little bit earlier that you were also involved in that test against the Wallabies at Ellis Park in 2002 when Markgraaff scored the last try and converted it to win it for us. What is it like being involved in test matches like that?
Oh man, amazing. I mean, it's similar, I would imagine, to what the guys have done in the World Cup now, winning by 1.3 games in a row. Those are incredible moments in a country's top sporting team. So I mean, I again often look back and I pinch myself for being just around at the time of those moments. Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, basically what happened with that last game against the All Blacks in Rustenburg, from what I remember, that was kind of almost a B team because he was resting players for the World Cup. Or if I'm wrong, tell me, but it's something like that. And he kind of just told me that, look, I'm going to play you in this test match, but I'm not taking you further. And so, I just thought, at the time I was also getting a little bit on, and in terms of age. And I thought, well, this is the best way for me to give it a goodbye against the All Blacks. So, and what a wonderful way to go out. It was amazing.
And then the following week, we made it 2 wins in a row by beating the Wallabies, as it turns out, again at Ellis Park, since we were just mentioning beating the Wallabies in Johannesburg. It has been a good ground for us against them. And as you said, that is where your test career came to an end. And I think you have explained a little bit, your relationship with Jake White. But if I may ask you, how disappointed were you that it ended there?
No, Peter, not bad. Look, of course, we always want more, and we always want better. Even my retirement a few years later, when those moments come, it is a bit sad because you feel like you want to do more. But in my career, I mean, I retired at 36 from rugby totally. But I mean, at the Springbok retirement, I want to say I was 32 or 33 maybe. And, that's a long career. That's a long time to play a game that's very physical. I mean, I'm so lucky that I don't have real scars left from rugby. I've got a few knees, but I knew at the time that the youngsters are just getting too fast and too strong, and I'm starting to slow down the team, but there are certain things that you can bring to the team as a senior player, which is leadership, etc., etc. But in terms of physical ability, I realized that the time is coming that I have to unfortunately pull the plug.
And then speaking about disappointments, AJ, in an alternative scenario, it's quite possible that you may have been part of the team at the 1999 Rugby World Cup, the 2003 World Cup, and even the '07 World Cup. But of course, you were not present at any of those three. Is that a disappointment for you?
A little bit. I mean, I was at the World Cup now in France, and I really enjoyed being there as a supporter. And you know, for the first time, I actually realized how massive the World Cup is. You know, it's great playing test matches. I played 25 test matches. I mean, 25 test matches. It's a lot of test matches to play for anyone. So I'm very grateful for having played those test matches. But it would have been great to add maybe a few tests at the World Cup, and you know, maybe a win at the World Cup. That would have been amazing. But Peter, I'm one of those guys that I look back with absolute no regret at my career. I feel like I've had an incredible career. It stood me in great stead for everything post-rugby, business, life, etc. So I'm very happy with the way it turned out.
AJ, I was just looking at Chris Rousseau's Springbok Test record, the 1995 Rugby World Cup champion. Now, I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He only played 9 Test matches, and 7 of those were at the Rugby World Cup. So I'm pretty sure you would have been happy to swap a little bit with him.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually was standing in the queue at the airport in Paris on the way out, and I looked around and Chris Rousseau was there. So we actually had a wonderful chat. We were standing for half an hour, and it was so lucky to catch up with Chris again.
And it was great to have him on the show as well. I must actually correct myself. He played 9 test matches and 6 of them were played at the Rugby World Cup. It's an incredible record to have. So AJ, I've got to ask you, who was your toughest opponent?
I think obviously, well, not obviously, there are 2 guys that stand out. One is Jerry Collins. Jerry Collins and I played both loose forward, and through the years of Super Rugby, more so Super Rugby than Test Rugby, because I played a lot more games against him in Super Rugby. We always had a full go at each other, and but the beauty about Jerry is he would drill me on the field and vice versa, but we would go out for a beer after a game every time and have a beautiful chat, and those are beautiful times. And then, of course, Bucky's and I always had, you know, a little battles within the battle on the field. So yes, I would say those 2 guys physically has definitely been some of the toughest guys I had to ever play against. And thank goodness I don't have to do that anymore.
Is there a current player who you admire?
Yeah, look, there's quite a lot. I mean, the old bloody Springbok side, you know, is on the ball. And of course, Sia is just playing out of his boots. I think he's the way that he's handling the leadership is amazing. The way he's just grasped that role is amazing. I don't want to actually, you know, mention names, because I promise you, I am so impressed with actually the old Springbok side.
What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I have got a business with my wife. My wife is a registered dietitian, and we've started a business called Danny Health. And basically, it is an online platform where Danny talks about various ways, for example, weight loss or diabetes. And we also do master classes with sportsmen. So, for example, we've just done Stefan de Blanche, and I don't know if you know, if you've seen Stefan de Blanche's physique. That thing is unbelievably solid. So we've just done a masterclass with Stefan, and we will put it on the platform probably in a week or 2 from now, where Stefan talks about his nutrition and what he does. So yeah, we're very excited. It's going well. The business is pumping, and it's something I do with my wife. So it's amazing.
That's very cool. Funny enough, speaking of Stefan, he was on this show about 2 months ago, and he looks like he could be out on that field right now with all the others, doesn't he?
Absolutely.
Okay, AJ, let's finish off by looking at that trivia question again. At the 2011 Rugby World Cup, the Springboks faced Fiji, Namibia, Samoa, and which other nation in their pool? Do you know the answer, AJ?
I want to say England.
Not a bad guess. In fact, you are, let's say you're in the right area geographically. The correct answer is actually Wales.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking it's gonna be in my mind. I thought it must be a European team and it must be one of the top teams. So that was my thinking, but I couldn't. I was guessing.
No, absolutely. We won that match, thankfully, but Wales actually went on to get to the semi-final, so I suppose a good World Cup for them. And from a Springbok point of view, we try not to talk too much about the 2011 Rugby World Cup, I think.
Yes, absolutely not.
AJ, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today. Pleasure to listen to all those old stories, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thanks, Peter. Good to have me. Thank you for having me, and have a nice day.
Front Row Rugby. Interviews with rugby legends with Peter Stemmet.